There's a dead person following my sister around. Most ghost stories start with a new house. Well, actually, it's usually an old house, a little bit run down, but with more rooms than your average Howard Johnson. Most of them were at the dark corners and cobwebs, but it's new to the people about to go get haunted. The family moves out to the countryside or to an island dominated by an abandoned lighthouse, or the kids are sent to visit Great Aunt Agatha, who lives by the windswept moors and talks to herself, or the car gets a flat tire, or the horse breaks its leg, and the travelers are miles from anything except a gloomy mansion on top of the hill. The house is generally situated someplace that has frequent thunderstorms, preferably between a swamp and a cemetery. Our house is old, but we've been living here peacefully forever. At least, my family has been here forever. The house was built by my grandfather's uncle's father. I think I've got that right. Anyway, I know it was built by the ancestor I was named after, Theodore Beatson, except everyone calls me Ted, and he built it before the Civil War. I've been living here just about 12 years, because that's how old I am, just about 12. Not that the house looks 150 years old. Granddad says he signed the house over to my dad and moved to the condominium in Florida because Grandma had to run out of walls to knock down and floors to refurnish. So it's not like the house looks spooky or anything. And we're not out in the middle of nowhere either. We're in Rochester, New York, which is pretty big, even if nobody outside of New York State has ever heard of it. We're close enough to hear Mr. and Mrs. Lister arguing in the house on one side of us, and to smell the chlorine for Wicked Nick's pearl on the other side. Behind our house is a big ditch that was part of the old Erie Canal before the canal was rerouted about a mile south, but the ditch isn't as interesting as it sounds. There's a house development right on the other side, and close enough that in the winter, without leaves on the trees, we can see their lights. We can also hear their dogs barking, summer and winter. But then again, they can probably hear my brother Zach's stereo, which only tunes in heavy metal stations at about 1,000 decibels, proving, I guess, there is justice in the world. So no swamps, cemeteries, or windswept moors. Just not counting Zach, there's nothing weird about my family. No undertakers or mad scientists, or people who only come out at night. My dad works for the telephone company, and Mom is a waitress at the little coffee shop in the mall. Besides me and Zach, there's our little sister, Vicky, who's in kindergarten. So that's me, my family, and our house. No long-lost relatives have come to visit. Nobody died. Halloween 5 months passed, but suddenly we had a ghost. Chapter 2. A ghost moves in. The haunting started so slow and easy, we didn't know enough to be afraid. Mom, who usually works only during school hours, was working in the evening because one of the other waitresses had just quit. Dad also would normally have been home in the evenings, but he's a manager at the phone company, an indoor 9-to-5 job. But the repair people had gone on strike the week before, so the management people were trying to cover for them, even though they didn't know what they were doing. All of a sudden, Dad was working from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, sometimes later if he got in the middle of something, and when he was home, generally he'd be sleeping or at the kitchen table trying to make sense of the technical manuals. I can't remember which it was that particular night. Vicky was supposedly asleep upstairs, and Zach and I were trying to watch TV together, except that Zach had the remote control. It's impossible to watch TV when Zach has the remote control. Every time there's a commercial, he starts to wonder what he's missing on the other channels. 9 times out of 10, it's more commercials, but that doesn't stop him. He'll hold his finger down on the button that advances the channels. Flip, flip, flip. Just about a second slower than it takes for the image to register on the eye. Very annoying. A black and white movie, Gilligan's Island in Spanish, painting lessons, an opera about a woman who's dying, who'll still be dying 15 minutes from now, the next time Zach flips through. By the time we get back to wherever we were watching, our commercials ended and the show has gone on without us. I've missed the crucial revelation somewhere between Madonna on MTV and Senate hearings on C-SPAN. When Dad is in the room, he takes the remote controller from Zach. But Zach's 16, and if I try to use force with him, he sits on me. So I have a tendency not to get too involved with TV when it's just the two of us. That's why I noticed Vicky upstairs in the hall. She was sitting on the floor wearing a robe and her ratty gray bunny slippers, watching the TV through the slates upstairs. I called up to her. You better. Jeez, Zach smacked me on the back of the head with the remote controller. Not in my ear, you jerk. You bigger jerk, I said, but I moved before I said it. My head must have made contact with the mute button. It felt like all the buttons were embedded in my scalp, but anyway, Zach ignored me while he tried to figure out what had happened to the sound. I told Vicky, if Mom comes home and catches you out of bed, I don't want to be around to see what happens. Keep it down, Zach grumbled. Vicky said Morella wanted to see what TV's like. She's never seen TV before. Who's that? I asked. Vicky pointed to the empty spot next to her. My new friend. Well, I thought, kids pick up the strangest things when they go to kindergarten. I'm told Zach acquired a pet giraffe in kindergarten, though I only got chicken pox. Anyway, I figured that if the other kids had an imaginary friend, and Vicky had decided she'd have one too. Well, you tell Morella, I started. Zach threw one of the decorative pillows at me. You tell Morella to go to bed, Zach finished for me. Vicky got to her feet disdainfully. She said Morella didn't like TV anyway, and she stomped back off to her room. I should have been suspicious. From a girl who names her stuffed animals things like Pink Bear and Big Rabbit, I should have been suspicious. That's how it all started. The next morning at breakfast, just as Zach was about to sit down, Vicky screamed. Zach nearly swallowed the pen he was carrying in his mouth, and Mom poured out about 2 cups of milk, none of which landed on her coffee mug. I had been looking at Vicky, however, and I figured I knew what it was all about. What? Mom asked in her frantic mother's voice. What's wrong? Zach almost sat on Morella, Vicky said. Who? Mom asked. Her new friend, I explained. I wiggled my eyebrows at Mom to indicate the nature of their friendship. When Mom continued to look at me as though I were speaking Martian, I added her new invisible friend. Zach, who froze in mid-sit, I said, obviously someone dropped both of you on your heads when you were babies, and he let himself fall the rest of the way into the seat, so hard that your chair skidded backwards on the floor. How's that feel, Morella? He demanded. In that self-satisfied tone all girls mastered by the age of 2, Vicky said, she's already moved to Daddy's chair. Zach, whose brain is not up to competition with a 5-year-old, mimicked. She's already moved to Daddy's chair. He started poking at the air above the empty seat. Stop it, Vicky screamed. Stop it, she doesn't like that. If she doesn't like that, Zach said, she should tell me to stop. She can't talk, Vicky said. Stop it now. If she can't talk, then how do you know her name's Morella? Zach said with an uncharacteristic clarity of thought. Vicky was trying to grab hold of his jabbing fingers, but she wasn't fast enough. She can talk if she has to, but it's hard. Mommy, make him stop. Vicky, Mom said, having finally caught her breath again. Stop that awful squealing. Zach, leave your sister alone. Ted, elbows off the table. That's Mom. She wants to never show favoritism, so she figures if she yells at one of us, she better yell at all of us. As Mom turned her back to get the sponge from the sink, Zach gave the air final poke. Does Morella like this? He whispered. She moved again, Vicky said, but this time she didn't say where. Knock it off, all of you, Mom warned, sponging up the spilled milk. And hurry up, your buses are going to be here any second. She indicated the pen and paper Zach had brought to the table. Is that something I have to sign? Nah, it's just science, and it's due when Zach glanced at his wristwatch. 20 minutes, but there's only one essay question left. More than enough time. I pushed my chair back to get out of there so I wouldn't have to hear her mom's lecture. At the same instant, Vicky lunged across the table, hitting Zach's glass of orange juice just at the right angle so that it fell right off and drenched his science paper. With a cry somewhere between pain and anger, Zach picked up the sheet and tried to shake off the juice, which was already making the orange-stained paper curl. Why, you little... Zach, Mom's warm, sponging the area around him. I didn't mean it. Vicky had gone white and her bottom lip was beginning to tremble. What do you mean you didn't mean it? Zach said. You just reached right over. I was trying to stop Morella. She was going to knock over your juice for being mean to her, and I was trying to stop her. Dropped on your head, Zach shouted at her. Vicky began to sob. One thing I have to admit, even then, I thought she was convincing. Zach, that was Mom's final warning voice. You shouldn't have been doing your homework at the breakfast table in the first place. And you, young lady, if you're going to bring your friends, invisible or not, to breakfast, you better tell them to behave themselves. Ted, don't slouch. Outside, a bus began to beep. All three of us scrambled to our feet because Zach's bus comes about 20 seconds after ours. I grabbed hold of Vicky's sleeve to get her to hurry up. It's embarrassing to have the whole bus wait for the kid. Everybody knows it's your sister. I didn't do it on purpose, she repeated to Zach. Zach, holding his homework at arm's length so it wouldn't drip on him, tapped her none too gently on top of the head to show just where he figured she'd been dropped. She began to howl again, but fortunately she kept on walking. None of us bothered to answer as Mom's voice followed us outside. Have any of you brushed your teeth? Chapter 3 and 4 will be read next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.